Fucker. God damn it. Hello there. Thank you for joining. My name is Vita, and in today's episode I'm going to be telling you the 5 reasons why I think that this bad boy did not succeed on the market, and what Sony can do if they ever decide to produce a perfect handheld gaming device that every gamer wants to have. Stay tuned and watch this episode of Game Vortex, and we're talking about PlayStation Vita. Hello and welcome dear listeners, viewers and anyone else who's watching this. And as you've seen in the title before, today we're going to be talking about this bad boy and why I think are the main 5 reasons. Actually, I managed to squeeze them into 4. This hardware did not succeed in capturing the core gamers and basically the huge audience that are still there, that are playing Nintendo 3DS and those who had a PSP and so on and so forth, and probably as well as just some mobile gamers as well. Obviously, it's not all bad. People like to talk and bullshit like there aren't any games, joking constantly that the console's a piece of shit. And I say that's bullshit. The console has loads of games. It's just that a lot of them are not AAA first-party games that we expect from this device that was promised to deliver a console gaming-like experience. What's the problem with this thing? We're going to talk about it in a minute. I personally love these things, but I don't know why it's been collecting dust for God. Most of the time it is collecting dust because technically this is perfect for me because I travel a lot, I work a lot, I don't have much time to sit and play in front of the computer or my PS4, so this should be great for me. But sometimes, even though there's gazillion games, I really struggle to find something that will keep me hooked for a while. I need those games that Sony did not deliver on. So let's take a look in general on the PlayStation Vita. It's about 5 years old by now. The current sales numbers, I have no idea, but it should be somewhere around 15 million. Just about 2 months ago it sold its 5th million in Japan, which is quite great because I think that's where the console will keep living on, and sooner or later Sony will have to pull the plug on the production, which is a shame because you honestly don't want the portable gaming market to disappear and you'll be forced to use that fucking monstrosity, the mobile gaming, with free-to-play timers, no proper controls that you can actually press, that you can feel the tactile buttons, like this is the gaming at its best. When you have the buttons, the sticks, right, the triggers. Because with the phones it's just plain fucking stupid. It's mashing and tapping and swiping, and this is another reason why this thing actually failed. It's too many gimmicks. You don't really need a touchscreen here and a touchpad here. You could have just squeezed more out of the system with this. Anyway, it's been out for about 5 years. This particular model is the first one. I bought it on the launch day. It's actually the OLED one. The newer version, the so-called slimmer version of the PS Vita, is running an LCD, and the difference is quite big. Yes, the LCD gives you a little bit more of battery life, but the picture quality and the quality of the color reproduction is fucking amazeballs on the OLED screen. And if you have a chance to pick one from the bargain bin, please do, and make sure that it's a first model. Now, the hardware is the same. It's basically running 512 megabytes of RAM and also 128 megabytes of VRAM. It's also spotting an A9 ARM Cortex CPU and GPU. And this is a bit of a problem, which I'm going to be talking about in a minute. The resolution is not bad. Basically it's 960 by 544, a sort of like a mini QHD resolution, with 220 DPI, just PPI, sorry, DPI, pixels per inch, pixels per inch. So, I mean, you have all the usual stuff. The camera is a piece of shit, garbage, at the front and at the back, never used it. Took 2-3 photos, looked at the quality and said, God almighty, better leave it out. A gaming device might not need one. Because hey, there isn't any Skype on this thing anyway, so what's the point? Then you have obviously these accelerometers and other crap, the touchpad and headphone jack, and this. Something that I want to tell you a little secret about, these 2 slots here. One of them is used for basically the cards that you use to play games, right? The memory card obviously goes here, and then you have a special cards where the games come on. But this slot has never been used, and I'm not sure if it's been removed on the second iteration of PlayStation Vita. But what I think this is, if you think about Nintendo NX, something that's supposed to plug in into your TV, I think that this thing was supposed to do that, but instead they span it off into PlayStation TV, the small box that you've seen before. I think that this was supposed to be some kind of attachment that you can plug it into your TV and run this piece of shit on your TV and enjoy the same games, because it would have been great. This would be the Nintendo NX pretty much, but just poorly executed and not as powerful. So there we go. Okay, so now let's move on to my list of 4 things in general, because 2 of them are so broad that I combine many things into one, and you will see why in a bit. So number 1, why the PlayStation Vita did not succeed in the market, and I think the problem with that is the hardware. I think that the hardware is way underpowered to deliver the promise that they gave us, console quality gaming on the go. It definitely could play like a console, but there weren't many console games, to be honest, like console quality games. So let's take a look at this. First of all, it's running a Qualcomm's CPU, which was specifically designed for Sony, and it's the kind of a processor that is very similar to what is used in the mobile phones. And the problem here is that a year after that Vita came out, most of the mobile phones already jumped further ahead than this thing. Sony planned to get this life out of this thing for about 7-8 years, maybe 10 if they're lucky, like they did with the PSP, which was an amazing piece of hardware which survived thanks to the piracy and obviously the emulation. That was the biggest thing. But with the Vita, the hardware is underpowered. It's similar CPU and GPU to what you get in obviously a mobile phone. But the thing is, Sony didn't take into account the leaps that the technology makes every 6 months, and like literally a year or 2, this thing was outdated. It was outdated and there was no way to make it better already. Yes, the graphics side of it was much more powerful than the phone, but the CPU and stealth was shit. And at that time, most of the phones came with 2 gigabytes of RAM at least, and this thing came with 512 megabytes of RAM. And this became a bottleneck again, just like with the PS3. You would run into the problems of you won't be able to run more than one app and a game at the time. Like you can't suspend one, it will close the other eventually. And I mean, this became very annoying, and the further we went, the more limitations we started to see with the systems, as well as not particularly a fan of the bubble interface that you see on the console. Like, I mean, okay, I'm playing here, as you can see, like, I'm not particularly a fan of this interface. So hardware, I think what they should have done, they should have, of course it's more expensive, but designed a custom CPU together maybe with another company, like they did with the other consoles. Yes, with the PS4 they shifted to the x86 architecture to make it easier to develop. When Sony shifted from the PowerPC cell architecture to PS4's x86, it made it much more easier and cheaper to develop the games of, and it became much more apparent how underpowered the hardware is, and that will never be able to survive the 10-year life cycle that Sony actually planned up for. And the same thing happened with PlayStation Vita. It's the similar architecture. The mobile's been making jumps ahead in a generation, and this thing became outdated, the same as the PS4 right now, and that's hence the Neo is coming out on the 7th of September, is going to be announced, because it's just the progress goes much faster than the. So what they needed to do is make a custom CPU and GPU and let the developers work it out, help them, assist them to make them work, make them actually. It's like with the PS3, it took so long to crack the damn thing in terms of how it works, and you see the amazing games you were able to get, like The Last of Us, running on 256 megabytes of memory. This is insane. They could have put more RAM into it by removing the unnecessary fucking touch controls and this thing. Yes, I understand it actually, probably some of the purposes to mimic R2 and L2, but it doesn't matter. Just take out the touch controls, take out the cameras, save yourself a couple of bucks and put a better hardware inside, or a better battery for that matter. So this is the thing, the number one that I want to tell you. I think it was way underpowered, and it would have never survived 5 to 10 years life cycle, never, even if it was supported by God knows how many games. Number two, the proprietary memory. Sony just shocked the world when they announced that this thing doesn't come with any memory at all. Okay, the newer version comes with 1 gigabyte just for your save files, but if you want to actually download the games and not play through this card, you are fucked. Like the 32 gigabyte memory card costed $100 at launch. Amazon UK, it's a fucking £80 investment, 80 quid. You can buy it cheaper for, like Vita, for less than that. It's insane. I understand that Sony needed to develop proprietary format in order to avoid it being hacked and pirated like the PSP. But it didn't work. Just a couple of days ago, the guys managed it. They fucking managed it. They jailbroken it. And they said, yes, piracy can technically work on it right now. So all that investment into proprietary memory went out the shit. When the SD card costs next to nothing for 128 gigs, you're supposed to pay, bloody hell, £100 or $100 for the bloody memory card. Yes, they are small, yes, they're tiny, they kind of like micro SD, but this is insane. It's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be like that. Jesus Christ, Sony, what are you doing? What were you thinking of? You asking people to spend $300 on average on the system, and then another 100 on the memory card, and then another 100 just for 2 games. So that came out to be more expensive than PS4. Now, of course, the price is not going to be mentioned on my list. Why? Because, Jesus Christ, I mean, yes, you could get it for as low as $250, $300, and if you have the courage and the brain to spend $800 plus on a mobile phone every year, then $300 on a portable gaming device, I don't think it's a very big investment because of the technology and everything that you get. And to be honest, the build quality of this is much better than the 3DS. The build quality of this is much better than the PSP, and I'm talking about the size and just the looks of the screen is amazing. It really is amazing. I mean, if you compare the screen on this, on the Nintendo 3DS or 2DS, I mean, it's night and day difference. And the clamshell design of that 3DS feels flimsy. So proprietary memory, back to that, horrific movement, bullshit. They should have just stuck to SD cards and invested that money and figure out how to protect your bloody device without asking people to pay $100. And right, five years later, what happened to that format? Why didn't it become cheaper? What happened to UMD, to Memory Stick Pro Duo? It's the same thing over and over again, and they haven't learned anything. The only thing they learned is that these fucking proprietary connectors that you can't find the cables for anywhere, they finally, in the Vita Slim, managed to replace that with a micro USB or mini USB, whatever the hell that is. Thank God for that, Sony. Thank God for that. And as far as I remember, they took that expansion slot out as well. So, number 3, the most important point is what I call Sony's approach to this hardware and games in general. And this evolves around the whole thing that I want to talk to you about. First of all, marketing. During the PS3 era, when this came out, it actually came out in between PS3 and PS4. The PS4 wasn't out, but people suspected that it existed. Sony couldn't say anything, so it didn't really properly work with the PS3, and to be honest, it didn't really properly work with the PS4. So, Sony's approach, marketing, first of all, during the PS3 era, the marketing was the worst fucking thing Sony ever done. They were just abysmal. They had no marketing. They sent out games to die. Big games, promising games, technologies, just to die because nobody fucking knew that they existed, nobody marketed anywhere. PlayStation Move, where the hell is that? Okay, now it's coming back. Finally, yeah, they finally figured out the purpose for it. Second, Wonder Book. Does anyone remember that? During the E3, they spent 20 minutes on that fucking abysmal demo. And to be honest, my kids would love to enjoy that game. I was in the shop one time in the UK and I looked in the shelf and was like, Wonder Book, when did that fucking came out? Not a single ad, nothing. We have J.K. Rowling Ka-ching, success. Harry Potter, ka-ching, success. And we fucking just left it to die. Nobody even knew it came out. And every single thing that they tried to release and stuff, the same as the Vita, there was pretty much no marketing. Like, they'll try for a month and nobody buys it, and they're like, fuck that, let this product die. And games the same way. That's Sony's bullshit, right? They've learned it. It seems that they've learned it from the PlayStation 4 now. You can see that they're marketing the shit out of their games and everything else. However, that also backfired with the No Man's Sky. They pushed it way too much. However, the testament to see if they actually improved will be seen when PlayStation VR releases in October this year, and the Neo. We'll see how that comes out. Another part of the Sony's approach is lack of vision. I don't think they believed in this piece of hardware enough to stand behind it firmly. I know they were concentrating on PS4, they were gambling all their money on PlayStation 4 to take them out of this financial situations that they were in, but still it shows that if you don't believe in your product, then the customers won't believe in your product too. Nintendo's, when they released the 3DS, or no, at that time not 3DS, the DS, like, it didn't really sell that well. It didn't do that well. But Nintendo persevered. They believed in their products. They started releasing new designs, new versions of this console, and amazing games on it. And now it's one of the best pieces of hardware you can buy due to the huge library that is available on it. And Sony just tried with a couple of games like Uncharted Golden Abyss and Killzone, which is basically great games, amazing looking games, linear games, not open world games, because that never came to fruition, and that's it. And there was a huge fucking avalanche of just garbage fucking games in the beginning that just damaged the system, like the Resistance Burning Sky, which was fucking reskinned version made in 13 weeks of that abysmal Call of Duty that nobody saw until it came out. And that's what damaged the system. They shouldn't have never done it. They should have took their team and said, come on, please allocate the resources and make this game and this game. You have a lot of franchises, Ratchet & Clank, Sly Cooper, which has finally came out, yes. All those games. And PlayStation Vita never was a PS3, never was a PS4. And this is lack of vision, is that they gave all this empty promise as console gaming experience. Was it supposed to be like the NX is going to be, that you can play the same game in both sides with the cross save? A couple of games tried, but the hardware limitations just nobody wanted to invest time and money, because you had to make or castrate the game to be able to run it on this thing. And you see games like, what was that game? Fucking Borderlands 2. I mean, that's an open world game, and the quality is horrific. It shows that this hardware was not designed to run these kind of games, and hence it became an indie machine. Like, there's loads of amazing indie games. It's loads of indie games and RPGs and things like that are coming on right now. But I want to, once in a while, sit down and play amazeballs looking game. Like, sort of like you play on PS4 and the PC on some of the games. Like, I just want, why isn't that not possible? Like, you should have waited, should have probably released the PS4, and then you should have worked on this thing. And the thing is, if they get enough money from this and VR, I think they might be bold enough to try a new portable. But this time what they need to do is that they should get an Tegra X2 processor that will put it on par with the PS4, and enough RAM, take away all the gimmicks, bullshit, touch controls and things like that, and just make it a gaming device that is powerful enough to deliver on the promises. Powerful, and don't give empty promises as well. So that's the main issue why I think it failed. And there was no marketing, there was empty promises, there was lack of support from Sony, there was a lack of vision. And speaking of which, do you know when they announced that they were pulling the plug, when they said, yeah, essentially it didn't sell, so what we're gonna do now? We're gonna pull out. We are not gonna make first-party games anymore. We're not gonna be supporting the first-party studios to make games. And you know what was my reaction to that? So there we go. And then the last point that I wanted to make is the games. Where are the games? Where are the games? Like, it was amazing for playing PS2 and PS1 classics, but they never managed to deliver on that properly as well. Like, they should have made it better. Like, and first, like, we wanted more AAA titles, we really did, but Sony just went in for such a short time, got scared and pulled out straight away. And how much confidence, like, you need to have confidence in your product. Like, and it was the same with Walkmans. I bought 2 Walkmans from them, which were fucking expensive, and they bailed on every single model after that. The software that they had, like Sonic Forge or whatever the fuck was it called, like, you weren't able to transfer shit on your player anymore. One of those HDD Walkmans that they had that I bought from them, and then I bought a flash memory based one. £300 I spent on that fucking player, and it was great, but it took like 12 hours to transfer 10 gigs of songs, and then obviously that fucking stopped being supported. And that's the problem with most of the Sony's problem. Like, it's insane. Like, I don't know, I just yes, they needed to sort this all stuff out. Yes, it's an amazing platform. Like, right now, I'm just gonna open up the games that I have here. I'm gonna tell you which ones are great games. Okay, what do I have here? Little Big Planet Vita, amazing game. Everybody's Golf, amazing games. Rayman Origins, fucking amazing game. Luminous Electronic Symphony, amazing game. Persona 4 Golden, hell, my favorite game from the PS2, and this port is amazing. It's amazing. Katamari, Soul Sacrifice, Sonic Racing Transformed, Sly Cooper, amazing game. What else? Muramasa Rebirth. You haven't played that, please play that. Pixel Junk Shooter, Rogue Legacy, Freedom Wars, Helldivers, Bastion, all those games. But Sony, like, this is my last point, is basically we're talking about Sony just dumping this platform and never releasing any fucking games for it. Now they're not behind it, so now it's only indies and the Japanese RPG companies that are filling in the voids, and occasionally you'll see European, Western developers basically putting their games on the Vita in a hope to capitalize, because the attachment rate on the Vita is higher than any other console that is out there. So the attachment rate, like, one person who owns Vita on average buys 8 to 12 games. What I needed here to succeed was the games like Yakuza, like Final Fantasy, like something in this kind of a sense, you know, like more of these games, Borderlands, Bioshock, whatever happened to that thing, some more racing games. Where's fucking Gran Turismo still? That's not out, and it's never gonna come out, obviously. Sony fucked up with the games department. As much as there are millions of games available, not millions, but hundreds of games available for the Vita, there isn't anything meaty or substantial. But at the end of the day, it's a great piece of hardware. When I'm playing it, I'm loving it, and sometimes I'm sitting after looking at it being down the shelf for a while, I just pick it up, start playing, and I was like, damn, this is good. Like, why can't I do it more often? Like, what's wrong? And to be honest, I'm very intrigued by Nintendo NX right now, because if that thing delivers on the power, and because they're not making 2 separate systems, because this thing can't properly talk to the, okay, you can copy things from PS3 and it can manage it, but PS4 can't even recognize this piece of hardware. So this is a fucking nonsense. So what I'm interested with the NX is that it's the same system. It doesn't try to be, oh, this is the main system, this is the subsystem, you have to connect them and do like that. No, it's the same thing. You play here, you play on your TV. It's amazing. I don't have to do cloud transfer saving or anything like that. This is what this thing should have been. Make a Tegra X2, because it's coming, definitely. There's been leaks of that CPU GPU combo already. Pair it up with like 4 gigs of RAM. Give me a decent fucking storage and support it with games, and you have a winner on your hand. And price it accordingly, right? You don't have to, like, now the components are much cheaper. The only thing you have to spend for is basically the CPU and the screen. The screen Sony can make themselves. They don't have to put, like, OLEDs were expensive back then, but they're not expensive now. So if Sony is crazy enough to do another handheld, which I hope they are, I hope that they're gonna make one. And they're gonna make it right, because there is still a climate. Sony said there isn't a climate because of the mobile gaming. It's bullshit. People always go back to the retro stuff, right? They always want to have something else, something dedicated. Like, I have a mobile phone and I'm not playing anything on it apart from fucking Pokemon Go, and even that has become boring. Because most of the games on the mobile phones are boring. And the games that overlay the controls on the screen are difficult to play. They just don't feel right. Like, unless you have a controller, but like this thing is much more better. Put it in your bag, in your pocket, right? And that's it. And remove the touch controls. Who thought that was a good idea to sit and play like that? Like, it's bullshit. You have buttons here, use them. So, what I wanted to ask you, my dear viewers, first of all, subscribe here or here, somewhere around this wise, I'm not sure. Click the subscribe button, please. It helps me grow and it helps me produce better content, obviously, and motivates me to come up with the new stuff. Also, do you have a Vita? And if you do, what's your opinion about it? Do you like it? Do you want Sony to make a new Vita? And what do you think were the biggest problems for you as a user? What were the big disadvantages? I want to know, and I'll definitely reply to you in the comments below. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Game Vortex. I'm Vitaly, and I'm gonna see you all very, very soon.